Button.
Ready? Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. Together, we are bringing you ideas about education, entrepreneurship, and relationship that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook
and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. This morning, we are joined by Deb Porter, who is on a mission to Mr. Rogers the world through teaching and practicing confidential, compassionate listening. To that end, she created Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. Hold is a listening service that is less than a therapist, but outside the common circle of family, friends, or coworkers. She makes sure that her team of listeners listens to your load. Welcome, Deb. We are so glad to have you here with us this morning. We met you a few days ago and we had a wonderful conversation, and we were like, we need to bring Deb on and have her share some of these listening tips and things that might help our parents and our listeners. So I'm so glad you joined us today.
Thank you, both Christina and Herb. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today. This is good.
Exactly. So let's start a little bit. Where did this concept of Hold come from? Why did you start developing it? Let's get a why down there.
Sure. My why is I've always, since I was 19, felt that my purpose in life was to help people. And my greatest gift, my best skill is really listening. So as I tried to look around at my life after my divorce and after the funeral home cut my salary and said, what if I could do anything, if I could imagine anything with my life, what would I love to do? And Hold came and I was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build this thing because I believe in it. So
that is awesome. Wow. So you've had a real corporate kind of job. You've been a mom or a family because you said you had a divorce, and now you're this entrepreneur that is really following her passion and helping people.
Yeah, and I really connected with you earlier because I was also a homeschool parent for many years. So yeah.
Awesome, wonderful. And that's part of the parents that we're trying to reach and help them to make it the best they can be for their children.
Perfect.
So tell us a little bit about this Hold, H-O-L-D. What kind of things happen whenever you're doing your listening session? I know you can't give away all your secrets, but what are a few things that kind of help make it work?
So one of the things, as I'm trying to teach people, I want to not only listen to people, but I also want to teach people how to be better listeners. And so one of the essentials, because listening is an essential skill, we've created an acronym. It's called CORE. I say we because my business partner, Linda, and I work together and we bounce ideas off back and forth. And we together came up with CORE. So the C stands for centered and calm. If you're not calm, you're not going to be able to listen. So that is essential. The O stands for outcome. So if you're beginning a conversation, what outcome are you hoping for with your child or with your spouse? What outcome is it that you want? You know, if we're having a conversation and it's, what are we going to have for dinner? That's really easy. We already know. We don't have to think about that so much. But if we're trying to have the outcome of, for example, how do we strategically plan the school year together as a family, then deciding on the outset, this is what the goal of the conversation is, really can help, so that you don't get sidetracked or get pulled off the emotions because everybody's on the same page about this is what we want this conversation to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. Relate. So here is a really important piece, right? Most people know when they think about listening, they think about relating, and they think about, okay, I know I need to make eye contact. I know I need to make sure my phone's put away, those types of things. But what we're really wanting to make sure happens here is that you stay dialed in and really are relating to the person. So that means you're asking questions. You're really trying to stay on track with the person that you're having the conversation with. And then finally, empathy. Empathy is so important. Empathy is it's listening by making sure that you're reflecting back their feelings. They're holding up a mirror. This is what I hear you saying. This is what I understand you mean. Is that right? And making sure that all of that connects. So that's the core.
Love it.
So in all of that, one of the challenges that as a coach is myself, and in some of the things that you're talking about, is lately, the last couple of years with going online, trying to make eye contact by staring at that little thing right there instead of looking over here. Because when I'm looking at you making eye contact,
Yeah.
I'm not making eye contact with you. But if I'm
Right.
staring here, so that little bit of connection in these conversations that no, I'm paying attention to you, but I'm not looking at you. That little challenges. So the empathy and the reflecting back becomes really important, especially in this
Digital,
screen time.
virtual.
So what experiences do you have? What advice do you have around that?
For me, I try really hard to once in a while look at the camera, and also I think that there's kind of a general assessment, an agreement among people that we know you're over there. So if my eyes are that you're there and I'm here, and so there is a sense of being dialed in there. So, but you'd be able to tell if I were looking at my clock up on the wall, or if I were distracted by my phone, you'd be able to tell. So it's really, I think, about being conscious of it and considerate. Yeah.
Exactly. I think part of that came true when I was in the classroom with my kids online, because even though the kids weren't looking at, the camera per se, I could see that they were looking at the screen at my face. I could see that they were following along with their mouth when they were practicing their sounds and things like that. So yeah, it really is a brain shift that we've kind of had to take on this digital world.
I love that point, Herb. That was really good. Yeah.
So Hold, when I was reading it's about creating a container outside of family and friends to be able to unload, to be able to get the stuff off your shoulders. But there's also a lot of listening skills that are going to be helpful within the family. So what are some ways, because especially when you first start homeschooling, when you first start pulling your kids out, they're going to have a lot more opportunities for communication than you did.
Yes.
A lot more.
A lot more.
So what are some tips that our parents can have on how to start effectively listening? Because they're going to be overwhelmed on all sides. What can we do to help our parents listen?
So it gets to be intense. So what I would say about that, especially through the transition, is give yourself a lot of kindness and grace. You don't have to do it perfectly. And when you set aside time where you're really intentional about connecting with your child, that is so important. It's that, that for quality, right? Quality matters. You're going to have a lot more quantity, yes, but that quality matters. So even though they're now there more, need to make sure that you're setting aside time where they're the focus of you, right? They're it. Yeah.
It's amazing how often so many of these tips and tricks come down to actually putting the time in. So creating a schedule and a structure and a time. So
100%.
even here, it's like scheduling this. So as a home parent, that scheduling aspect is going to be tremendous. But so make sure to add also in time for just listening.
Exactly. And
with my kids, we would often there's different parts of listening, right? There's listening about the homeschool stuff, right? As that transition is happening, it's like, what's working for you, right? And then listen, what do you like? What don't you like? What are you feeling? And we would often, as we were just beginning, we would do that initially at the end of each day. And as we got a little further along, we made it the end of the week. And so, and then as it became just comfortable and it was our life and we had a sense, then it could be less, maybe once a month check-in or something like that. But especially at the beginning, it's really important to have those check-in times.
I said this is also a really great time to have a coach, because at that month when you start getting comfortable, that's when you need the coach to start making you a little bit uncomfortable, to keep pushing the edges to make sure you get, because even in business, when you get comfortable in business, that's when things start
slowing down or not growing more.
So even with all of that, the coaching, so listening, when you start to listening, having a coach to help you keep going on that is just so important. So
absolutely.
So yeah, if you need help, here's someone to help you learn that.
Exactly. So you mentioned that you have kids. Are they currently older, younger, kind of in between? Do you mind talking about that?
Sure. My daughter's 22 now. She's she'll be just in a couple of days from this recording, going back to her last semester in college. She intends to go to grad school afterwards. And my son is 17. He's he's in his last semester of high school as well. So he's also a senior. So I've got 2 seniors. So life changes are coming for us for sure.
Exactly. Were they homeschooled while you were trying to be an entrepreneur, or was that in your kind of business or work area? Sorry, I'm not saying.
No, that's okay. I have so much respect for those young mothers who are able to do that. That was not my journey. When my kids were young, I was experiencing, our family was experiencing a great upheaval. My husband was extremely ill, and I was a caregiver to him for 8 years. And so I was trying to caregive to my husband and make sure that he had what he needed every couple of hours, and as well as make sure that my kids were learning and growing and having their needs met. It was extremely challenging. In some ways, maybe the entrepreneurship would have been better than what I had. There was quite a lot of pain for us as we mumbled and fumbled our way through that. But ultimately, I feel that because I put so much effort into really listening to them, they felt heard and they felt like they mattered. They felt seen. And so even though it maybe wasn't the best experience or what we had hoped for as a family, where we are now, I'm really proud of.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure really any family has ever had the best experience.
Right.
From the outside, they can look amazing, but every what's in the house is always different than what people show. So
yeah,
don't judge yourself even there,
Yeah.
because that everybody's got something.
Because it sounds like you handled it with that kindness and grace that you were just talking about a little while ago about, that's what you have to kind of give yourself and your
you do.
family.
100%.
Big transitions. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thinking about why homeschool, because it sounds like your kids have been in the kind of like the public school or a private school and then also homeschool, kind of maybe back and forth.
Back and forth. Yep.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about kind of how that happened or why that was maybe a good fit for you and your family?
I was a reluctant homeschooler. Are you familiar with that term? Reluctant. I was like, I was not, it was not my first choice. When my daughter was in first grade, she came home from school the very first week and said, actually it was the first day, and she said, "Mom, I think I need to be in second grade."
Okay.
And then by the end of the week, she was incredibly unhappy, and we were starting to see some big things developing. And then the next week, she refused to get on the school bus.
Okay.
I'm not going.
Uh-huh.
And I had been so thoughtful and intentional about helping her have her voice and be independent and speak her mind. And suddenly she was, and I was like, wait, no, don't do that.
You're not old enough for that yet. That's for later, right?
And I was like, wow, this really, like, if I practice, if I can't change this now, like, I've taught her to be this way. I've taught her to speak her mind. I've taught her it's important to listen. If I don't hear, what message am I giving?
Right.
And so we got drug to the homeschooling, because I went and I talked to the teacher and I said, listen, I understand that you've got a lot going on. You've got 23 other kids. My kid's only one. I respect that. I'd like to work with you. How do you feel if I send some books from home? I'd like to send her some supplemental things that she can work on that's maybe a little bit more at her level. And the teacher was very unwilling. And she said no. And she said, if we let her do these things now, what will she learn when she gets to second grade or third grade? She said no. And she said her daughter was a person who learned to sing the alphabet backwards and speak backwards and do all these strange, weird things. I was like, right? I'd like my child to be a little bit better.
Off the charts, brilliant things.
Right.
And I was like, I I really want my daughter to have what she needs right now. I don't want her to have to wait. So I realized that we had a philosophical difference, and that we were not going to be able to get into alignment. And so that was the beginning of our homeschool journey. The first time.
Exactly right. And that is a kind of a reluctant start, but I mean, you were doing what's best for your child. And that's one of the things that we're trying to help parents realize, is that they need to do what's best for their child. And
100%.
public school sometimes isn't the best choice. Sometimes it is the best choice, as long as you're connecting and making sure that you're working with your kiddo. Sometimes it's in and out, kind of like what you said that your journey has been. So like businesses need coaches. Why can't parents have education coaches, or why can't parents have people who help them make those decisions? So I'm glad that you were able to do that, because as a 27-year teacher, I'm shocked listening to that, because I would have never said that to one of my parents. It's like, you want to send some extra things for her, because as a public school teacher, I understand that we need to get certain curriculum covered because we're responsible, But if a parent wanted to help supplement, oh my gosh, that makes my job so much easier, because then I don't know. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I really would have worked with her teachers had that been an option. It was not. So, and I think what's really important, especially if you have a gifted child, it's really important to understand and meet them where they are. It's and if where they are is very, very far ahead, that's they deserve to learn. They deserve to be fed. They deserve to have that as much brain food as any other child.
And most schools, the school district that we're in, Hillsborough School District, actually made a policy that they were getting rid of the highly intelligent child standards and the smarter kids are now being forced to work with the lower kids to bring them up and to level the playing field. So the smartest kids, don't get their classes of their own, and they're being forced to work with, so they're being forced to teach the other kids stuff that they don't necessarily understand,
just sit and be bored.
and it's creating, again, a lot of trauma and dislike of the school system. So again, if you do have a really highly intelligent child right now, the school system is probably not able to meet their needs, not necessarily because of the teacher's desire, but because of the way the policies and mandates and the stuff that's coming down. So be really careful about that. Keep and listen to your kids, because this is going to cause problems, because if they like learning and suddenly they don't have any opportunities, they will be telling you they will be having issues in school. So listen.
It's how imposter syndrome develops. All of the really bright children is some of the, if you're familiar with imposter syndrome, it's that's not me, right? And so people start to think all of the intelligent kids who aren't allowed to be who they are and develop as they need to, they're like, oh no, I'm not that smart. I can't do that. I'm not that good.
Yeah, and they been learning a lot about visual learners too, and visual learners don't have the word learning capabilities. So a lot of the coursework in school for visual learners, the hands-on learners, that's all being removed in favor of mathematics and just word stuff. So the visual learners and the hands-on people and the tactical people, they're all getting like completely left out of school. And again, they're not being heard. It's like, that's not how I learn. So they're being shunted off. And then the people who do learn that way are trying to force. So it's just this weird conglomeration of things going on in the school that make it really difficult for education to actually happen right now.
Yeah, it does.
So if the parents are really on the ball, they can make it work. They can be with the teachers, they can be with the kids, but you have to be really, really involved in that.
There's a commitment. I agree with you 100%. There's a commitment. And it's a decision. It's a decision of, I want the best for my child, and I'm willing to make the sacrifice and shuffle life as we need it to be, so that my child can learn, grow, and thrive.
Exactly.
And one of the reasons that we're also entrepreneurship is part of this is because when you get into entrepreneurship, it's because other stuff isn't working right. there's other things going on that throw you into this entrepreneurship path. And so if you have kids and stuff isn't working right, and the kids are seeing that stuff isn't working right, then bringing them along with you to help fix the problem instead of leaving them in the problem while you try and fix it over here can cause disturbances in the family. That listening gets a lot harder when you stop being able to use the same words.
Mhm.
So you were saying that you homeschooled, and then for a while you said that was your first time homeschooling. So then did you go back to public school for a while?
Yes, eventually she did. I found really early on, I found a private school that was actually for much older kids, but it was in Chicago, and it was founded by some people who had a real heart for gifted kids. And so they were willing to take Anya for just a day a week into their school. And so that worked out really well. It meant driving into Chicago. So that was an hour drive for me. I had my son who's little in the car seat. That was harder. But we did that. And then yeah, it was a long journey to get her to where she's at now, for sure. You know, we bounced in and out. There's meeting the social needs. I know we talked about that in our personal conversation. I think it's something that's so true for gifted kids. They want to feel normal. They want to feel a part of a group of people, and especially around 9, 10, that those needs really shine loudly. And so we made a move to Reno, and we gave public school a try again. There's a program here called the SWAS program. It's called the School Within a School, and it's for gifted kids. And we tried that for a while. And then that also didn't work. We had another issue with the teachers.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Exactly. So thinking about, uh-oh, my brain just left.
So did you homeschool your son at all, or was he just?
We did. I did. When I pulled Anya from the School Within School program at about the same time, my son was getting, he was in first grade, and he was getting notes home. I had them in the same school. He was getting notes home about behavioral issues. He was not, and I tried to speak with his teacher. I said, look, he's reading at this level. Can we accommodate that? And I again got no. And so I again said, okay, I'm not fighting this battle. I'll just take them both home. And so I did.
Got it. Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
The courage, the drive to do that, to take care of your kids. We need more people like that right now.
I want to make it really clear, I'm not bashing on teachers, because I know there are so many great teachers out there. I can tell Christina that if I had had the opportunity to work with you, we could have figured it out. We would have done something great. Exactly. I just happened to have people who weren't open and who were very closed-minded, and not that open box kind of thinking that you guys are promoting and talking about. Yeah. So
one of our children is on the spectrum, and went to the same school that she was teaching at. And there was a lot of times where the IEPs, and we got all of these, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And even though it was in the same building she was teaching in, that stuff just never ended up fully manifesting. So even with the best teacher and the best laid plans, if the class sizes, the stuff going, there just sometimes the
chemistry of the class
isn't enough space and time to put all of those plans that you make into action, into practice anyway. So
that's why listening to your child is so important, because they'll tell you when their needs aren't met. If you listen, they'll tell you, but you have to be dialed in. You have to be watching the behavior. You have to be noticing the nonverbal language. You have to be noticing and drawing them into the conversation to listen. And if you draw them in, be sure, oh my gosh, be sure to keep your center, be sure to be calm. Because let me tell you, when my daughter was in the SWAS class, and when that blew up, I got angry. I was really, I don't get angry easily, but I was angry, and it took a lot for me to stay calm, right? To practice that core, because what she was telling me,
right,
I was not, but at the same time, I was listening to her, right? And it was about her and her needs. And if I had
blown up,
if I had yeah,
Yeah.
that would not
Mad
have
at the
been helpful to
situation. Yeah, if you'd have got mad at the situation, she wouldn't have, she would have been less likely to continue talking.
Right.
right. So
Or she would have thought you were mad at her.
exactly.
It's like, no, we got to differentiate, make sure. Yeah.
Right. So
So if a
practice
parent,
the core.
yeah, exactly. I love it. Core. If a parent wanted to maybe create a listening time each week, what would be some tips or some ideas that you would give them to start slow, of course, because you usually just can't jump in and make that huge change, especially when they're like teenagers or whatever, or they're very vocal and strong-willed kind of.
I went through a coaching program to learn how to listen.
To do that.
How
Yeah.
do
So
you,
what are some things that parents can start slow, creating listening spaces maybe once a week so that we can build this relationship?
I'd say build it into something you're already doing. So for example, if you're going to the grocery store already, take the time to say, as you're driving to the grocery store, tell me one thing about your week that you loved. And then tell me one thing about your week that you wish had been different. Just build it into something you're already doing. If they help you with a specific chore around the house where conversation's, a possibility, maybe you won't get that same eye contact, but especially if it's new and your child's not used to that or doesn't like that, if they're on the spectrum, then for sure, absolutely, you give them the space and time they need to just share.
and if you can ask pretty specific questions, that helps.
That does help.
So
100%.
the whole how was your day gets a general how was your, a real general response. So there was times like when I was talking with her when she was having a bad day, it would be like, hey, what today made you feel like a competent teacher?
Nice.
Hey, what today made you feel like you connected with your kids?
Perfect.
So a real specific question.
Yes.
So if your kids are into a video game, ask a very specific question about their video game to start the conversation. Is just one little tool instead of just instead of a generalized out there, be specific on something that they like.
So the video game thing I struggle with my son because he loves video games. Even at 17, he's still playing video games, and that is still what he loves to talk about. It's not what I love to talk about, but it is what he loves to talk about. And so in order to meet him where he's at, I'll say, what's the next goal you're working towards in your game? So that's not really a specific question because I don't understand anything that's going on in that game, to be really honest with you. And he's told me a lot and I still don't get it. But it's enough.
Exactly. I'll talk with Robert and be like, dude, I have no idea what you just said, but I can tell that you're doing this and you're really excited. And I was like, yes.
So, and you reflected back the feeling, and that's what they need, to be seen and to be heard. That he gets that you got his excitement and his happiness. And so you let him know you validated. Oh my gosh, validation is so important. You validated his feeling. How beautiful is that?
I love it, love it, love it. That is wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit more about your program. So if someone needed a listener, what would they do, or how would they maybe get in touch with you, or what do you have going on?
Sure. So if somebody needs a listener, they book on our website. It's a book and pay. We're typically available, either myself or one of my other listeners that I've trained are available usually within about an hour. It's $25 per 15 minutes, and we have an option of 15, 30, or 45 minutes. So the pricing is really straightforward. And you can choose phone, chat, or Zoom. So if you're not comfortable having a conversation where you're seen, that's fine. We can have a telephone conversation or text chat. And we quite simply listen. One of the foundations of Hold is we don't give advice. So during my caregiving years and my homeschooling years, to be really honest with you, people often gave me advice I wasn't ready to hear, or I didn't need. I simply needed to experience. I needed to express the feelings and have that validation that we just talked about, right? Whether it's excitement or whether it's upset or anger or fear or whatever you're feeling, just having somebody else to hold that space with you. That's what we do. So.
Wonderful.
And if you haven't actually experienced that for yourself yet, it might sound simple, but it is so absolutely profound and life-changing. I have a coach for a different reason, and most of it is me just talking and having somebody hear me and repeat back. with mine, there is a little bit of homework and advice at the end, but for the most part, it's me being able to talk and get my head clear so that I can speak clear. So what she does is incredibly valuable. If you need help with that, with talking about something, or even help learning how to do that with your kids, amazing resource right here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. If you've got listeners who might have teens, we have a resource about helping you through developing the conversation with an angry teen. And it's a free resource. I'll put that in my information for you to share in the show notes. So if that's something that would be helpful to your listeners, that's free, easy to sign up for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Deb. It has been a wonderful conversation, and I love that we were able to go back and forth and actually listen to each other, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the tips and
I have one more
tricks.
question. Is there anything else that we haven't covered this afternoon or for this conversation that you would like to tell? Is there one little bit of advice or something that's like, oh man, I wish we had covered this? What would that be?
If I can teach people one thing, this is my thing. If I can teach people one thing, it's so often a spouse or a child will go, and I don't know what to do. When that happens, just simply say, wow, I heard all of that. Did you want my advice, or do you just need me to hold space with you? Don't jump in with the advice, but just listen and hold the space. It's so important.
I love that. Clarify if they really wanted something back or if they just needed to. That happens a lot whenever you're excited about something, or maybe you've learned something new, exactly. Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
All right, everybody, make sure that you are following along. Look in the show notes for that resource and all of Deb's contact information. And let us know on a review if this show has been helpful. And as always, take care and make the best choices for you and your family. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, we wave on a podcast.